I used to think that the worst moment of my life was when my wife woke up and couldn't remember who I was. But I was wrong. That wasn't the worst. The worst moment of my life happened today, and I still don't know how to process it. 3 months ago, my wife Cynthia and I were hiking on a trail about 30 miles outside of Albion. She slipped near the ridge overlook and fell nearly 20 feet onto a jagged outcropping below. I had no feasible way of reaching her, so I did what any rational person would do in that situation. I scrambled downhill to get somewhere that had service and called 911. By the time paramedics finally arrived, she was unconscious and bleeding profusely from the side of her head. I must have waited in the hospital lobby for what felt like an eternity. Seconds crawled by like hours, weighed down by immense anxiety and uncertainty. When the medical staff finally informed me of her condition, they explained that it was nothing short of a miracle that her injuries weren't far worse. Her guardian angel was looking out for her, were the doctor's exact words. He urged me to remain cautiously optimistic about her recovery, but even that warning paled in comparison to the emotional anguish that followed. It was a long while before Cynthia finally had the strength to look at me, and when she did, her eyes were void of any trace of recognition. "Do I know you?" she asked. I didn't respond. The question felt like it had come from another life. According to the neurologists, cases of retrograde amnesia were rarely straightforward. I was physically there when they relayed concepts such as emotional instability and drastic shifts in personality, but mentally, I was elsewhere. I was warned that by the time she came home, the love of my life might no longer be the person I remembered. It was a lot to take in all at once, and I broke down many times after the news had long been delivered to me. In the days that followed, family members, friends, and co-workers alike all stopped by to see how well she was doing. While they were all focused on lifting Cynthia's spirits, I threw myself headlong down a rabbit hole of research, desperate to learn anything and everything that could help me with her recovery efforts once she was discharged. I spoke with a wide range of specialists and read articles late into the night, desperate to retain anything that could help Cynthia return to normalcy. The day I could finally bring her home couldn't come fast enough, but when it did, I was overwhelmed with relief. I could free her from the confines of her hospital room and give her a much-needed change of scenery. On the drive back to our home, I couldn't help but wonder if it were possible for us to reclaim even a sliver of the life we had shared together before the accident. Her adjustment to life back at the house was a gradual process, but even with the accommodations I'd made for her, changes were still noticeable. For starters, while she was able to remember my name, she started sleeping on the opposite side of the bed instead of next to me. I couldn't necessarily blame her for that. My name might have been familiar, but that alone didn't make me any less of a stranger. Another change I noticed was her newfound hatred for coffee. Cynthia said that it was disgusting. I was crushed when she said that because I had made it the way I remembered her liking it. She had been an avid consumer for years and refused to start any morning without it. What was once a morning ritual had now become yet another absence in our house. I poured the pot of coffee down the sink and never made another cup after that. Additionally, she forgot our address and even called our dog Sammy on multiple occasions, even though her name was Zelda. For context, we've had Zelda for 7 years, and not once has she ever growled or bitten anyone. That is, until Cynthia came home. It wasn't hard enough to draw blood, but it was enough to send a message. When I heard her scream in pain, I immediately asked her what had happened. She insisted that all she had done was try to pet Zelda, but she wouldn't let her. She kept accusing Zelda of being out of control and that she needed to go. But she had never behaved like this, ever. The entire time I talked to Cynthia about this, Zelda growled from the floor of the adjacent room. Even when I called her name to knock it off, she didn't look at me. The whole situation was bizarre, but I attributed that to Zelda getting used to Cynthia being back home. Anything else meant a truth that I couldn't carry. Later that night, I went downstairs to find her sitting at the kitchen table with all the lights on. What was most peculiar was how haphazardly dozens of priceless photos, ranging from our wedding to family holidays, were strewn about. She looked like a college student cramming for an exam the night before. "What are you doing?" I asked, shielding my eyes from the kitchen lights. "It's 2 a.m. You had me worried." She looked up when I entered the room and quickly shut one of the albums. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I'm just trying my best to remember everything. I walked over and draped my arms around her. Don't apologize. I'll help you remember everything. I'm here every step of the way. She placed a hand over mine but didn't look away from the photos. I stayed downstairs with her a little longer, reminiscing about how things used to be before leading her back to our bedroom and finally calling it a night. Over the following weeks, Cynthia began remembering small details of our life. Birthdays, our anniversary, favorite foods, even the names of family members. She even corrected me about a detail regarding our Disney World itinerary from a few years ago that I was sure she had forgotten. We were snuggled up in bed watching a movie together one evening when she nuzzled her head against my chest. I think I'm starting to remember a certain feeling. I turned my attention away from the movie to look at her. What do you mean, dear? She smiled warmly and looked up at me with her sapphire blue eyes. What it's like being in your arms. Her words warmed my heart and we embraced lovingly. I was elated to see that things were seemingly improving. I'd remained hopeful that after all this time she'd pull through. But despite the progress she had made, everything about it was undone the moment I arrived home from work today. I walked through the front door and found Cynthia sitting on the couch watching TV. That wasn't the problem. The problem was what she was eating. I stared at the leftover Thai takeout container that she was scooping food out of and read what was written on black marker on the side of the box. Spicy PB noodles. I felt a chill creep up my spine. Peanut butter. That wasn't possible. She couldn't have eaten my leftovers. Cynthia had a severe peanut allergy, the kind where any form of exposure could send her into anaphylactic shock and kill her in minutes. So how was she consuming it by the spoonful? Cynthia noticed me staring. Why are you looking at me like that? Is everything okay, honey? She sounded genuinely confused, but I wasn't. You can't eat that. My hands trembled with rage and sadness. She set the container down on the coffee table in front of her slowly. Jason, baby, what are you talking about? Of course I can. I watched her get up from the couch and approach me. Before she can offer any reassurance, I pulled away and retreated up the stairs towards our bedroom. She hasn't come upstairs since everything happened. I think she's still watching TV downstairs. I'm not even going to entertain my idea. Everything I thought I knew about her has been ruined. I don't know what to do or what to think right now. The only thing on my mind right now is that whoever is downstairs right now, that's not my wife.
I need to write this down because I feel like I'm losing my mind, and putting it somewhere outside of my head might help. Dane and I have been together for 4 years. We're the kind of couple that finishes each other's sentences, that has a whole private language of inside jokes and shorthand. I know him better than I know anyone. I say that because I need you to understand that when I tell you something is wrong with him, I'm not being paranoid. I know this man. We got back from a section hike on the Appalachian Trail 11 days ago. We did about 200 miles over 3 weeks, starting in Virginia. It was Dane's idea. He'd always wanted to do a long stretch, and I had never done anything longer than a weekend trip. I was nervous. He was so excited he could barely sleep the week before we left. The first 2 weeks were incredible. Hard, but incredible. We fell into a rhythm. We'd hike until late afternoon, set up camp, cook whatever dehydrated thing we'd packed, and lie on top of our sleeping bags, talking until one of us fell asleep mid-sentence. I felt closer to him out there than I ever had. No phones, no obligations, just the two of us in the mountain. It was the 3rd week when things started to feel off. I don't know how to explain it except to say that the woods changed, not visibly. Everything looked the same trail, the same trees, but the quality of the air felt different, thicker somehow, like the atmosphere had shifted by a degree you couldn't measure but could feel in your chest. Dane felt it too. He got quieter. He'd always been the one pointing things out, look at that ridge, look at that bird, but he stopped. He just hiked, eyes forward, jaw set. On the fourth night of that week, I woke up in the middle of the night and he wasn't in the tent. I found him standing about 20 feet away at the tree line, just standing there, looking into the dark. I called his name and he turned around so fast it startled me. He looked, I don't know, not scared exactly, more like he'd been caught doing something. He said he'd needed to use the bathroom. We went back to the tent. He didn't sleep after that. I could feel him lying awake next to me all night. We finished the hike 2 days later and drove home. I thought once we were back in our apartment with our things and our routines, he'd return to himself. He hasn't. He flinches when I touch him, not every time, but enough that I've started hesitating before I reach for him. Last week, I came up behind him while he was doing dishes and put my hand on his shoulder, and he made a sound, not a word, just a sound, and stepped away from me. He apologized immediately, said he was jumpy lately, blamed it on bad sleep. He's not sleeping. I hear him up at all hours, but when I get up to check on him, he always comes back to bed right away, says he's fine, and lies there stiff as a board until I fall asleep. He started locking the bedroom door at night. We share a bedroom. We share a bed. For the past 6 days, I've been waking up on the couch with no memory of getting there, and the bedroom door locked from the inside, and Dane on the other side of it claiming he has no idea how I ended up in the living room. He says I must be sleepwalking. He says it gently, the way you say things to someone you're frightened of. I asked him last night to please just tell me what was wrong. I sat across from him at the kitchen table and I asked him to look me in the eye and tell me what I had done. He looked at me for a long time. His jaw worked. I watched him decide something. He said, "You haven't done anything. I've just been in my head since the trail. I'm sorry." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. He let go after less than a second. I went to the bathroom after dinner and stood at the sink for a long time. I looked at myself in the mirror. Normal. Tired, a little thinner than before the hike, but normal. I turned the faucet on and splashed water on my face. When I looked up, I was smiling. I hadn't smiled. I wasn't smiling. But my reflection was, just for a second, just long enough for me to see it wearing an expression I hadn't put there, wide and still, impatient. Then it was just my face again. I told myself it was the lighting, the water in my eyes. But I've been thinking about the 3rd week on the trail, how the air changed, how I have almost no clear memories from those last 2 days of hiking, just flashes, a strange taste in my mouth, a sound like something large moving parallel to the trail just past where the trees got thick, waking up outside the tent once with dirt under my fingernails and no explanation. I've been thinking about how Dane stood at the tree line that night, how he looked when he turned around, the sound he made when I touched his shoulder. I've been thinking about the mirror. I've been telling myself I need to ask him what he saw on that trail, what he's been seeing since we got back. But there's another part of me, quiet, patient, underneath, that doesn't want him to answer. That part doesn't want him to say it out loud. I don't know what that means. I don't know if I should be scared of what's happening to Dane or scared of something else entirely. I just know that last night I dreamed about the woods, the smell of them, the dark, and when I woke up, I was hungry in a way I've never been before, a way I don't have words for. I don't know how to end this post because I don't know what I'm even asking. I guess I just needed someone else to know.